For today's video, I was talking with some friends of mine and some magician friends of mine, and we were discussing practicing. And I thought I'd share with you guys today some tips on when you're practicing card magic and how to practice and kind of what to practice. Now, it's really a subjective thing. Different people like to practice in different ways. And there's not one right way. It's, pretty much whatever works for you. But there are some tips that if you follow them, you'll do a lot better, and your technique will become better.
Ooh. Ah.
Whatever.
Hi folks, Magician's Apprentice here. Welcome to today's video. Excuse my voice if it sounds a little odd, because I'm just getting over a cold. Last weekend I got hit with one pretty bad, and I'm starting to recover. I'm feeling better now, but I'm still a little stuffed up and feeling a little funny. So how you practice, it kind of depends on one of two things, like when I practice. And one is, if I'm just practicing to like keep my pencil sharp, like just to to exercise myself and keep up with things, or whether I'm actually learning something new. If you're learning something new, then the biggest thing is repetition. Okay, to be able to do it well, you need to be able to do it without looking at your hands, without thinking about it. You need to be able to just do it. And the only way that you can do that is by practicing it over so many times, over and over again, correctly, that you don't even think about it. Your hands are just almost moving on their own. And that's not something that you're going to get overnight. So if I'm learning something new, what I will do is I will practice the technique, but I'll make sure that I do it slowly to start, because there might be a lot of different things like my finger positioning or my hand positioning or something like that. And then you practice that move over and over and over and over again until you get comfortable with it. And then once you get comfortable with it, you should start to be able to do the technique pretty much without looking at your hands, and you'll be able to feel. And then, of course, the smoothness and fluidity of the technique will also improve as you go along. And then once I've gotten to that point, then if it's something like a pass or something like that, then at that point what I'll start doing is I'll start doing it in front of a mirror or in front of the camera even. And I'll do the technique and I'll check my angles and just adjust myself. And again, doing it repeatedly, so that if I'm doing a particular technique and my hands have to be a certain way, or maybe my body has to be facing a certain way, then if I've practiced it properly, if I do that technique and I'm not facing the right way, or my hands are not in the right position, it will feel wrong and I'll know I'm doing it wrong. So that's something that I'll do, and I'll do that for anywhere from several hours to a couple hours a day for several weeks to get one particular technique to the point where I'm comfortable with it. Not necessarily that I've perfected it, but that I've gotten comfortable enough with it and I can continue to train or practice that particular technique, but not maybe necessarily every single day to the exclusion of anything else. If I'm learning, if I'm just practicing to, like keep on top of it and just practicing techniques that I already know, but I just want to either, maybe make them better or just not lose the technique that I have, then what I'll do is I'll break it down. So maybe one night, if I'm practicing, I'll just do individual techniques. Like, maybe I'll do the classic pass, for 10 or 15 minutes or something, and then maybe I'll switch over to the spread pass, or something like that, and I'll continue on like that for an hour or two, just to get my my fingers nimble. And then the next night, what I might do is I might practice a bunch of techniques in front of a mirror, right? Just watching my angles and checking it out. And then maybe the night after that will be nothing but card tricks. And that's important, okay? Especially if you want to go out and perform. Your card tricks need to come as easy to you as your techniques do, right? So you have to practice those card tricks to the point where you're not thinking about it. You just decide which trick you're going to do, and boom, 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 away you go. Because the one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to get ready to do a trick and then you're having to remember, oh geez, how does it start off, right? So one night, I'll just sit there and I'll just bust out 10 or 15 or 20 card tricks, and go over them, even if they're ones that I've done quite a bit before. I want to be able to do a card trick without having to think about it, like without having to concentrate on the mechanics of the trick, because I would prefer to concentrate on the pattern or the story, or my presentation. Which brings me to the last one. Again, what I might do is on an evening of practice, if I've got an hour or two, I might do only maybe 2 or 3 card tricks, or even just one sometimes, depending on if it's a relatively new one or one that I really want to improve. Then what I'll actually do is I'll work on my presentation of the trick, and what I'm going to say, or if there's a particular story that I'm going to use throughout the card trick, I'll practice that as well. So you can see how it's really everything. So I want to practice my techniques, I want to practice my card tricks, I want to practice my angles and my presentation. And then when you're doing your presentations, then that all comes together. So I find this works for me. You guys might find that something works a little bit different for you, but I've always had a certain degree of success, I guess, in practicing that way. If you guys have any thoughts on how you practice, or you'd like to share, please be sure to tell me in the comments, or send me a message on how you practice, what you practice, and maybe how often you practice. Because I know life gets in the way sometimes. If you're not a full-time magician and you've got a regular day job, there's not always time to do an awful lot of practicing, and which is fine. But you should set aside some time, as much as you can, to be able to keep your pencil sharp, keep into it, because it's how that old saying goes, right? If you don't use it, you lose it. And that's very true, because I found when I was starting out, there was a couple of tricks that I liked, but I didn't, I practiced them and I learned them, but then I didn't do them for quite a long time, and I never thought about them. And then one day I went to do one of those tricks, and I was like, oh crap, how does this thing start again? And I didn't hesitate too long, but it was enough that it's like, hey, yeah, if you want to continue to use these particular tricks, you actually have to practice them. Anyhow, guys, I know that I did a lot of talking on this one, but I thought it might be interesting, and you guys might find it interesting. So thanks for listening to me. Take care, and we'll see you guys in the next video.